You know how it starts. It's late, later than it should be. The room is quiet, and the light from your screen is the only thing keeping the dark at bay, and you're reading, not watching, not listening, reading. And somewhere in the middle of a paragraph about something completely ordinary, there is a hyperlink. Blue. Underlined. Waiting. You click it. And the article you land on is stranger than the one you left. And there's another link inside it.
And another inside that one.
And suddenly it's 40 minutes later, and you are reading something that has no business existing. Something that actual human beings documented and filed and put into the public record. And you are sitting there in the dark, feeling a particular kind of cold that has nothing to do with temperature. That's a Wikipedia rabbit hole. And tonight, we're going down 3 of them. The Dyatlov Pass, a mountain in the Soviet Union, 9 experienced hikers, 9 people who were never supposed to die. Not there, not like that, not in a way that made any sense at all. The Isdal woman, a body found in a Norwegian valley in 1970. No fingerprints, no name, a trail of false identities stretching across 6 countries. A mystery so dense that investigators eventually stopped, not because they solved it, but because they hit a wall they weren't allowed to climb. And Overtoun Bridge, a quiet stone bridge in the Scottish countryside where, for over 60 years, dogs have been throwing themselves off the edge, dozens of them, deliberately, and nobody knows why. Welcome back. Tonight is a different kind of episode. We're not visiting crime scenes or tracking AI systems or sitting with witnesses. Tonight we're going to a place all of us have been before, that quiet corner of the internet where the world's most carefully documented strangeness lives in plain sight. Available to anyone, 1 click away from an article about something completely mundane, Wikipedia. At 2 in the morning is a different place than Wikipedia at noon. Make yourself comfortable. Settle in and try, just try, not to open any tabs while we're talking. Let's go down the first one. 9 hikers, 1 night. 0 rational explanations, the Wikipedia page for the Dyatlov Pass. Incident is one of those pages that you stumble onto thinking you'll read for 5 minutes. You do not read it for 5 minutes. You read it for an hour, and then you read it again. And then you find yourself at 2 in the morning searching Soviet archive photographs and feeling a kind of low-grade dread that you can't quite shake even after you close the laptop and turn the lights on. Because here is the thing about the Dyatlov Pass, the thing that separates it from every other mysterious death article on Wikipedia and places it in a category almost entirely its own. The evidence is abundant. There are photographs, there are diaries, there are detailed Soviet investigation reports, there are forensic findings from the bodies themselves. There is more documentation of this event than of most ordinary tragedies, and none of it explains what happened. None of it even comes close. Let me take you there. February 1959, the Ural Mountains, Soviet Russia. 9 student hikers, all experienced, all in excellent physical condition. Several of them veterans of previous challenging expeditions, set out on a ski trek across the northern Urals. The route was graded Category 3, the highest difficulty level. These were not beginners. These were not reckless young people. These were serious trained mountaineers who had done this before and who had prepared meticulously. Their leader was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov, after whom the pass and the incident would eventually be named. He had led multiple successful expeditions before this one. Everyone who knew him described him as careful, cautious, the kind of leader who checked his equipment twice and planned for every contingency. The group set up camp on the slopes of a mountain the local Mansi people called Kolat, Shakal in the Mansi language. That name translates as Dead Mountain. The group had been calling it that long before any of this happened. Long before 9 bodies were found there in the snow, they had been calling it that for generations, and nobody who lived in that valley would walk on its slopes after dark. Igor Dyatlov's group set up their tent on its slope on the night of February 1st. By morning, they were all dead. When the search party finally found them, weeks after they missed their scheduled return, Soviet investigators walked into a scene they would spend months trying to interpret. And when they finally filed their conclusion, it was so unsatisfying that it sparked 60 years of further investigation, including a formal reopening of the case by Russian prosecutors in 2019. Here is what the evidence showed, and I want you to sit with each detail, because the horror of this case is not in any single finding. It is in the accumulation. It is in the way each piece of evidence is individually explainable and collectively impossible. The tent had been cut open from the inside, not from outside, not torn by wind or damaged by fallen snow, cut deliberately with a knife from the inside, by the hikers themselves, in the middle of the night, for reasons that nobody has ever been able to conclusively determine. They fled through that cut in temperatures of approximately minus 30 degrees Celsius, without stopping to put on their boots, without stopping to put on their coats. Several were found in socks, one in a single shoe. They left everything, all their cold weather gear, all their food, all their equipment, inside the tent. In minus 30 degrees, without proper clothing, experienced mountaineers left their shelter and ran barefoot into the dark. Something made them more afraid of what was inside that tent, or what was coming toward that tent, than they were of freezing to death in the Russian winter. The bodies were found at varying distances from the tent, in several separate locations, suggesting different subgroups had made different decisions in the dark about which direction to run. 2 were found at the base of a large Siberian cedar tree. Their hands were damaged, skin scraped from the palms and fingers in a pattern consistent with having climbed the tree. Branches up to 5 meters high had been broken. They had climbed that tree in the dark, in the freezing cold, without gloves. They were looking at something. The remaining bodies were found in or near a ravine. And here is where the Wikipedia article sends you down a sublink that sends you down another sublink that keeps you reading until 3 in the morning. The forensic findings on 4 of the bodies from the ravine were, according to the pathologist's own report, consistent with a high-speed car crash in terms of force, massive internal trauma, fractured skulls, shattered ribs, crushed chest cavities, but no corresponding external injuries, no bruising on the skin, no cuts, no marks that would suggest a fall, a fight, an avalanche, a weapon, force sufficient to kill, applied from the inside out, in a way that left no trace on the surface. And one more thing. One of the female victims, Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue, and both eyes, and part of her lips, the soft tissue of her face, partially consumed, attributed by investigators to being submerged in water and exposed to the environment, to carrion animals, to natural decomposition. Investigators said this. Investigators did not appear to fully believe it. Here is where, if you are reading the Wikipedia article at 2 in the morning, you find the detail that makes you put your phone down for a moment and just sit with it. Other hikers in the area, on a separate expedition, camped roughly 50 kilometers south, reported seeing strange orange spheres in the sky above the direction of Dyatlov's group on the night of February 1st to 2nd. They reported this. It was logged. It is in the record. Soviet military and meteorological services also logged anomalous light phenomena in the region that night. Photographs were recovered from the group's own cameras they left in the tent when they fled. Most show the final hours of the expedition, the group making camp, smiling, eating, performing the small rituals of people settling in for the night. One photograph, taken by an unknown member of the group, found on a camera recovered from near the tent, shows a blurry, unidentified light source in the sky above the mountain. The image is unclear. It has been analyzed for decades. Nobody agrees on what it shows. The official Soviet verdict, when it came, was a conclusion so deliberately vague it tells you more by what it avoids saying than by what it says. The cause of death was an unknown compelling force. Unknown compelling force. That is what the Soviet Union, a government not historically known for ambiguity, put in the official record. The case was classified. The files were sealed for 30 years. The 2019 investigation, opened by Russian prosecutors with modern forensic tools and access to previously sealed archives concluded, after months of review, that the most likely explanation was an avalanche that disorientated the group in the dark. Critics of this conclusion, including multiple forensic experts and people who have physically examined the site, note that the terrain at the location of the tent is not consistent with avalanche risk, that no avalanche evidence was found at the time, that experienced mountaineers specifically chose the tent's placement to avoid avalanche, and that an avalanche does not explain the internal injuries, the missing tent supports, the orange lights, the state of Lyudmila's face, or the fact that the group fled barefoot into 30 below zero when shelter was 10 steps away. The Wikipedia article on the Dyatlov Pass incident is 47,000 words long. It has been edited over 9,000 times. It has a dedicated talk page where editors have been debating the same unanswerable questions for over 15 years. I have read most of it. I do not sleep quite as well as I used to. She had 6 identities, 14 countries, no name, and someone didn't want her found. The second rabbit hole begins innocently enough, the way all the best ones do. You are reading about unidentified persons, or cold cases, or something about Norway maybe, and you see a hyperlink for something called the Isdal woman, and the name alone, that particular combination of ordinary and strange, makes you click it. The article loads. You read the first paragraph, and you do not close the tab, because the first paragraph of the Isdal woman's Wikipedia article contains a sentence that stops you completely cold. A sentence that should not exist in a document filed by police investigators in 1970 in a quiet Scandinavian country. A sentence that belongs in a spy novel or a Cold War thriller, not in an official investigative record. The sentence reads that the woman was found with her fingerprints deliberately removed. Deliberately, not damaged by weather or time or the elements. Removed, intentionally, methodically, before or at the time of her death. Someone did not want her identified. November 29, 1970, Isdalen Valley, near Bergen, Norway. A father and his 2 daughters are walking in the valley, a popular hiking area, beautiful by day, quiet in the way that mountain valleys are quiet, when they find a body, a woman, lying amongst the rocks, partially burned, a plastic bottle near the body containing a mix of alcohol and sleeping medication, items scattered around the scene, 2 liquor bottles, a spoon, a hairbrush, a glasses case, a woman's watch, a small earring. The initial assumption was suicide, a troubled woman, a remote location, a fatal combination of substances. It took investigators approximately 48 hours to realize that this was not a simple case of anything. The fingerprints were gone. The labels had been removed from every item of clothing she wore. The serial number on her watch had been filed off. The glasses case had its identifying markings scratched out. The earring was a single, no match for it was ever found. Someone had methodically, carefully, deliberately erased every possible avenue of identification from this woman's body and possessions before, or at the moment of her death, which meant one of 2 things. Either she had done it herself, had spent time deliberately removing every trace of her identity before ending her life, or someone else had done it for her. 2 suitcases had been deposited at a station in Bergen before the woman's death. They were eventually traced and opened. Inside, 14 items, all with labels removed, all serial numbers filed off or scratched away. But forensic work on one of the items revealed a partial label beneath the damage, enough to trace it to a manufacturer, and that trace led investigators to a record of purchase. In another country, they began reconstructing her movements. Witnesses, hotel staff, train conductors, other travelers were interviewed across Norway and beyond. What they assembled, piece by careful piece, was a woman who had been traveling extensively across Europe in the weeks and months before her death, under different names. Investigators confirmed at least 8 false identities, possibly more. Passports, identity cards, and travel documents using different names, different nationalities, carefully constructed cover identities, the kind of layered false documentation associated not with ordinary travelers but with professional intelligence operatives. She had been in Belgium, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Britain, Denmark. The pattern of her movements, when plotted on a map, was not the pattern of a tourist or a businesswoman. It was the pattern of someone who was specifically avoiding surveillance. Someone who understood how to move without leaving a trail. Someone who was very, very good at disappearing until she couldn't disappear anymore. Several witnesses interviewed in Bergen described the woman in the days before her death. Staff at a hotel where she had stayed noted that she seemed frightened, that she checked the corridor before leaving her room, that she had asked more than once whether anyone had been asking about her. A man who had spoken with her briefly at a train station, whose account was taken seriously by investigators, said she had told him quietly that she was being followed, that she was afraid of what would happen if whoever was following her caught up. He said she seemed very calm about it, the way someone is calm when they have accepted something, the resignation of a person who has run as long as they can run. A few days later, she was in the valley. Here is where the Wikipedia article sends you somewhere that genuinely unnerves you. The Norwegian investigation, thorough, professional, conducted by competent people who took the case seriously, hit a wall. Not slowly, not gradually. It hit a wall that felt less like a dead end and more like a door being closed from the other side. Certain avenues of inquiry, according to investigators who later spoke about the case, were discouraged. Certain government entities were uncooperative in ways that went beyond standard bureaucratic friction. The woman's fingerprints, despite being sent to multiple international law enforcement agencies including Interpol, were never matched in any database. A woman with 8 false identities, who moved like a trained intelligence operative, whose fingerprints were in no international database, whose death was either suicide or murder and who nobody was able to identify. Norwegian authorities eventually ruled her death a suicide. The case was never truly closed. It was archived, which, as any investigator will tell you, is a different thing. The Isdal woman has never been officially identified. In 2017, 47 years after her death, a team of scientists and journalists from the Norwegian public broadcaster, NRK, launched a new investigation using modern DNA analysis, isotope testing, and advanced forensic methods. They narrowed her likely origin to Central Europe. They confirmed that her final meal had been consumed at least 24 hours before the substances in her system, suggesting the timeline was considerably more complex than the official account indicated. They did not identify her. Nobody has. The Wikipedia article on the Isdal woman has one photograph, a composite reconstruction of her face built from the skull, assembled by forensic artists that has been updated twice as the technology has improved. It is a kind woman's face, composed, patient, looking back at you from the page, still waiting to be found. The bridge in Scotland, where dogs jump, dozens of them, deliberately, and nobody can stop it. The third rabbit hole is the one that will follow you home tonight, not because it involves death on the scale of Dyatlov, not because it carries the geopolitical shadow of isdal, but because of what it asks you to consider about the nature of perception itself, about what animals might be able to sense that we cannot, about whether a place can be, in some way that defies every framework we have, fundamentally and persistently wrong. Overtoun Bridge. It sounds like something from a folk tale. A stone bridge in the Scottish countryside near the town of Dumbarton, built in the late Victorian era, crossing a small stream called the Overtoun Burn. Beautiful, in the way that old Scottish stone is beautiful, mossy, quiet, the kind of place you'd take a photograph of on a country walk and not think twice about. Except that for over 60 years, something has been happening on this bridge that nobody, not scientists, not animal behaviorists, not paranormal investigators, not local authorities, has been able to fully and satisfactorily explain. Dogs jump off it, not occasionally, not randomly, consistently, over 60 years. Dozens of confirmed cases, multiple deaths, multiple incidents of dogs surviving the fall, being brought home, recovering, and then returning to the bridge and jumping again. The same dogs returning to jump again. This is not urban legend. This is not local exaggeration. This is documented. The cases have been reported in mainstream media, investigated by animal behavior researchers, and covered in enough sources that Wikipedia's article on the bridge carries multiple citations from credible outlets. The pattern, and this is the detail that transforms the overtoun bridge from a curiosity into something genuinely disturbing, is specific. It is not random dogs jumping at random points on the bridge at random times. Almost all the jumps occur at the same spot, the same two parapets on the right-hand side of the bridge. Almost all of them occur on clear, bright days, not in fog or storm, not in conditions of poor visibility that might explain disorientation. And almost all of the dogs involved are of a similar type: long-nosed breeds, Labradors, collies, retrievers, dogs, with a strong sense of smell. Short-nosed breeds, pugs, bulldogs, boxers, have almost never been involved. This specificity, the same spot, the same weather conditions, the same type of dog, tells researchers something important. This is not chaos. This is not random misfortune. There is a pattern. Something is causing this. Something consistent. Something that affects certain dogs in certain conditions at one specific location. The question that people have been trying to answer for 60 years is what? The scientific theory, and it is the most compelling rational explanation, centers on smell. Beneath the Overtoun Bridge, in the rocky burn below and in the earth and vegetation of the gorge, there is a concentration of small mammals, mink particularly, and mink, along with mice and rats that share the habitat, produce a scent that, to a dog with a powerful nose, is essentially overwhelming, irresistible, the scent of prey. The theory is that dogs with strong olfactory systems, long-nosed breeds, catch the scent rising from the gorge as they approach the parapets. The smell is so compelling, so concentrated that the dog's brain, flooded with the instinct to chase, simply overrides the visual information it's receiving. The dog doesn't see the drop, it smells the prey, and it goes. It is a theory that explains most of the pattern, the breed specificity, the clear day preference, the location consistency. It does not explain why some dogs survive the fall, are brought home, and then come back to the bridge and jump again, because that is the part the animal behavior researchers go quiet about. That is the part of the Wikipedia article where the clinical language gets slightly careful. A dog that has already fallen, that has already been through the trauma of impact and injury and recovery, that comes back to the same spot and goes over the edge a second time. Is it following a smell toward prey, or is it following something else? The local theory, the one that the people who live near Overtoun Bridge have held for generations, is simpler and offers no comfort at all. The bridge is a thin place. In old Celtic belief, a thin place is a location where the boundary between this world and whatever lies beyond it is thinner, where the membrane is less solid, where things that exist on the other side are closer, more present, more perceptible to those with the senses to detect them. The Celts believed some animals could perceive the thin places, could sense whatever was on the other side, could be drawn toward it in ways that a human being, with our comparatively limited and rational senses, could not. The local people who grew up in the shadow of that bridge, who have watched, generation after generation, the same thing happen at the same spot, do not primarily talk about mink. They talk about what their dogs look like just before they jump. Multiple witnesses, dog owners who have been on that bridge, owners who did not know about the bridge's reputation before they visited, people who were not looking for anything strange and found it anyway, have described the same thing. Their dog, approaching that section of the parapet, becomes very still, not frightened. They are careful to emphasize this. Not cowering, not whining, not showing signs of distress. Still, alert, focused. The way a dog looks when it hears something, when it is listening to something, when something has its full and absolute attention. Some owners describe their dog's tail beginning to wag, the way it would if the dog had just spotted someone it recognized, someone it was happy to see, and then it goes over. Overtown Bridge still stands. People still walk across it every day. Dogs are still brought there, sometimes by owners who don't know, sometimes by owners who do know and believe the scientific explanation and trust their dog's lead. The Wikipedia article on Overtoun Bridge has an external links section that will take you to interviews with animal behaviorists, newspaper archives from the 1960s, and a documentary made in the mid-2000s in which the presenter, with a long-nosed dog on a lead, walks onto the bridge to test the theory. I'm not going to tell you what happens. I'll let you click through yourself, but I will tell you what the last line of that Wikipedia article says. Not a conclusion, not an explanation, just a fact stated plainly, in the particular flat tone that makes Wikipedia so uniquely unsettling when the subject matter is strange enough. It notes that the bridge has been visited by paranormal investigators, that they recorded anomalous electromagnetic readings at the precise section of parapet from which the dogs jump, that they could not explain the readings, that they noted the location appeared to be, in their assessment, a site of unusual and persistent psychic energy. And then the article ends, and you close the laptop, and you go and find wherever your dog is sleeping, and you sit with them for a while. 3 rabbit holes, 9 hikers, a sealed Soviet file, and a verdict that said unknown, compelling force, and thought that was the end of it. A woman with 8 names and no fingerprints, and a face that forensic artists have rebuilt twice and still nobody has claimed. And a bridge, a quiet, old, beautiful bridge in Scotland that dogs walk onto, and do not always walk off. This is what Wikipedia does to you late at night. It hands you information with both hands, documented, sourced, cited, formatted, and it lets the information sit there, completely available, and it does not tell you what to feel about it. It does not resolve. It does not comfort. It just shows you that the world has been documenting its own strangeness, carefully in plain language, in publicly accessible records, for as long as there have been people willing to write things down, and that some things written down stay written down because no one ever managed to write an explanation underneath them. If tonight sent you looking, if you've already got a tab open, if you're already 3 links deep, good. Come back and tell me in the comments which one got under your skin the most, which detail you can't stop turning over, because I read every comment, and your rabbit holes become my rabbit holes. And that is how the next episode gets made. Subscribe. New episodes every week. More rabbit holes. More pages that load and don't let you close them. Stay curious, but maybe, just this once, close the laptop before midnight. You'll sleep better, probably.